Hello guys, welcome to another video of Azure DevOps. In this video, we are going to discuss about differences of Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Server. We'll discuss what are the key differences, what are the features, and where we can use Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Server. And if you have to choose between these two, we'll discuss about these things as well, like what will be the better option according to your requirement. So let's begin the video. This is the agenda. We'll be discussing about everything: introduction to Azure DevOps, overview of Azure DevOps Services. We'll be discussing overview of Azure DevOps Server, key features, and what are the differences in infrastructure and deployment. We'll discuss about the pricing models, use cases, and recommendations. So let me start by discussing about Azure DevOps. What is Azure DevOps? Okay, this is basically the suite of tools for planning, developing, and delivering your software. You can use this tool to uh, plan your you can say the software with Azure work items. You can create the user stories. You can plan the sprints, and with Azure repository, you can develop the software, you can keep the code of your software, and with CI/CD pipelines, you can build and deploy your software. Once that is done, you can use Azure Test Plan to test the application as well. Okay, so these are some of the tools provided by Azure DevOps, which we can use to plan, develop, and deliver our software in production smoothly. Okay, this provides version control, build pipeline, CI/CD, agile planning, and many more. Okay, why compare Azure DevOps Services and Server? Services are cloud-based, while server is self-hosted. So Azure DevOps Services, that is nothing but Azure DevOps, which is hosted by Microsoft Cloud, and the Azure DevOps Server one, that is self-hosted. If you are using Azure DevOps Server, you will have to use this. You will have to use your own infrastructure in on-premises or private cloud to host the Azure DevOps Server. But in case of Azure DevOps Services, you will just get one URL from Microsoft, and all the services will be hosted in the cloud. Okay, so let's now discuss about Azure DevOps Services. Okay, which is the cloud version by Microsoft, fully managed in the cloud by Microsoft. So this is totally managed by Microsoft. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to manage the infra. You just have to use the Azure DevOps service. Okay. Accessible via the internet. You can access this Azure DevOps services from the internet as well, because this is Azure hosted. This generally gets the frequent updates from Microsoft. So this Azure DevOps Services is totally managed by Microsoft, and it will be updated as soon as some update is available for the Azure DevOps Services. Okay, these are some of the key features of Azure DevOps Services. Like we get Azure repos, Git repositories to keep our code or keep our software. Azure pipelines, CI/CD pipelines to build and deploy our code, deploy our software in production or any other environment. We get Azure boards as well to do the agile planning. You can create the task, user storage, and other type of work items as well. And in Azure Artifact, we can store and deploy our packages. This basically we can use for the package management. If you have to push your build artifact into the Azure Artifact, or if you have to manage or push your dependencies in the Azure Artifact, you can do that. do this, and you can again use this to restore your dependencies while building your code. You can use Azure test plan to test your software whenever you have completed the deployment. Now let's discuss about Azure DevOps Server. Okay, this is nothing but the on-premises of Azure DevOps. This you will have to host inside your on-premises or in your private cloud. Okay, for formerly we called this as Team Foundation server, that is nothing but TFS. Now this is being called Azure DevOps Server. Okay, this is allows for self-hosting in a local data center or private cloud. So if your organization is having a separate local data center or they are using private cloud, you can use this Azure DevOps Server to self-host inside virtual machines or anywhere you want. Okay, these are some of the key features provided by Azure DevOps Server. This supports all core services like Azure repos, pipelines, boards, etc. These are some of the features like we get in Azure DevOps Services as well. Here in Azure DevOps Servers, you will have full control over data, compliance, and network configuration. But in case of Azure DevOps Services, you won't have these. I mean, you won't have control over these things. This can be customized and extended with the plugins and integrations. You can customize this. You can generally get more customization here in this Azure DevOps Server, and you can even install multiple plugins, and you can enable integration with third-party tools or any other tools from the Azure DevOps Server. These are the differences or comparison between these two, Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Server. If you see some of these, like for hosting, this is cloud hosted and this is self-hosted in the on-premises or your private cloud. You can use this, or you can use your private cloud, or if you have any servers, you can use that to host this. Okay. In the updates, generally Azure DevOps Services gets updated by automatically and frequently. But in case of Azure DevOps Services, this is manual and customizable. You can manually install this Azure DevOps Server and customize it as well. For access, this can be accessed from internet, and since this is inside your on-premises network or private cloud, this can be only accessed privately. Even if you want to allow the public access, you can do that, but there is no point of allowing public access if you are using Azure DevOps Server. Okay, for customization, we get limited customization in Azure DevOps Services because this is managed by Microsoft Azure. Here in the Azure DevOps Server, you get high level of customization. And for compliance and regulations, this is managed by Microsoft. And in Azure DevOps Service, you get full control. Okay. In case of scaling, Azure DevOps services is totally scalable in the cloud. But in case of Azure DevOps Server, this is limited by your on-premises resources, and you can scale your server according to that. Suppose you have used a virtual machine of 8 GB of RAM, and this is totally occupied. If you want to scale that, you will have to scale your virtual machine, otherwise you cannot scale your Azure DevOps Server. But in case of Azure DevOps Services, this limitation is not there. Okay, integration with Azure, this can be integrated seamlessly and easily. But in case of Azure DevOps services, you will have to do it by yourself manually. Okay. Who is now more secure? So in case of security, this is managed security and SOC compliance. And in case of Azure DevOps Services, you can customize your security where you want to keep your data and all other things. You can customize it by yourself in Azure DevOps Server. So if your organization is more secure and they want to keep their data inside their data center or inside their private cloud, you can use Azure DevOps Server. But your organization is cloud oriented and they can, I mean, if there is no issue, if they can store their data in cloud, then you can use this Azure DevOps Services. Okay. Now let's discuss the deployment and infrastructure differences. In case of Azure DevOps Services, this is hosted on Azure Global Infrastructure. No need for local hardware or server maintenance. This will be taken care by Microsoft. Scalable with Azure cloud capabilities. You can scale it, or you can store, or you can create as many as pipelines or whatever you want in the Azure DevOps services, because Microsoft will take care of scaling this. Okay, this is fully managed by Microsoft. In case of Azure DevOps services, this requires self-managed infrastructure. If you will have to manage your infrastructure by yourself, this can be deployed in your local data center or private cloud. This requires management of updates, backups, and scaling. You'll have to update it by yourself, take backup by yourself, and even scale this Azure DevOps server by yourself. Okay, because this is totally deployed in your local data center and or maybe the private cloud. So you'll have to update it by yourself. Okay, Microsoft will not take care of anything, and in this case Azure DevOps Server, you will have full control over infrastructure configuration. You can decide or you can plan how you want to design and develop your Azure DevOps Server infra and monitoring and other things as well. Now let's discuss about the pricing models. So Azure DevOps Services is free tier available for small teams. So you can use this Azure DevOps Services for free up to 5 users. If you have more than 5 users, then you will have to take the license. Pay as you go model for additional users or features. If you are adding more users or features, you will have to, of course, pay it. Pricing based on usage, example CI/CD minutes or hosted agents. If you are using Microsoft hosted agents or CI/CD pipelines, then you will have to pay accordingly. Okay, if you are using Azure Artifact and Azure Test Plan, for that as well, you will have to pay. In case of Azure DevOps Servers, this is licensed per user or through the Azure Server licensing model. How many users are using your Azure DevOps Servers? You will have to, I mean, you will have to buy your license accordingly. One time purchase for on-premises plus ongoing maintenance cost. You can purchase this on Azure DevOps Server, and you can even, this includes maintenance cost as well. Okay, this requires hardware maintenance and IT resources. You will have to manage your hardware, you will have to manage your resources, other resources which are supporting this Azure DevOps Server by yourself. Let's now discuss about the use cases of both Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Server. Okay, so Azure DevOps Server Services is ideal for organizations who are looking for a cloud first approach. Okay, so like I already said, if your organization is cloud oriented, they can of course select this Azure DevOps Services. This is also best for teams that need scalability and global accessibility. Okay, if you don't need to worry about scaling, then you can of course use Azure DevOps Services. No infrastructure management or hardware cost. So in this case, you don't have to manage your infra and you don't get the hardware cost as well. In case of Azure DevOps Server, this is suitable for organizations with strict data sovereignty or regulatory requirement. So if your organization is having strict data requirements, they don't want to keep their data in the cloud, you can use Azure DevOps Service. In case of banks, they generally use Azure DevOps Service because they don't want to keep their data inside the cloud, and generally in most of the cases they keep all the data inside the on premises. Okay, this is best for companies that already have extensive on premises infrastructure. So if some companies they have the best, I mean they have good on premises infra, then they can use this Azure DevOps server to host in their infra. Okay, here in Azure DevOps Server, this we get customizable workflows and advanced on-premises control needed. So if you have advanced on-premises control, you can use this Azure DevOps Server. So finally, in the conclusion, we just seen how we can use Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Servers. In case of Azure DevOps Services, this is optimal for cloud first, scalable and globally accessible environments. And in Azure DevOps Server is the choice for organizations needing full control over infra, compliance and customization. Okay, so decision factors: cloud versus on-premises, compliance needs, customization level, cost, and infrastructure preference. In case of Azure DevOps Services, if your requirement is cloud first, scalable, and globally accessible URL, if you need, you can use the Azure DevOps Services. But if you need full control over your infra, compliance, and other things like customization, you can always go for Azure DevOps Server. Okay, so we discussed differences about Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Server in this video. We also discussed some of the features and use cases as well. Okay, so that's it from this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe my channel. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.